So that's about when I was in first or second grade, that picture of me. And when I was in first grade, we moved around 4 times. We moved from Seoul when I was a kid, and we would go back to Seoul all the time. So we lived kind of between these two worlds, East and West, and the cultures are very, very different. The exposure that other kids had to Korean children varied depending on where we lived. I remember when we moved to South Carolina, nobody knew where Korea was, and I kept having to tell everyone, I'm half Korean. It was confusing for us as kids too, because we were bouncing between these two languages. My sister and I would often speak Korean and English mixed together on the playground, but it was our normal. I learned to get comfortable feeling uncomfortable, and that being awkward was okay. And it took a while to kind of come to terms with the fact that every time you walk into a new school, you're going to be a little afraid. It's going to feel really weird. What if people don't like you? And over time, I learned that when I walked into a room, that I was just going to be myself. Is a picture of me in middle school at a middle school dance. I remember that picture because we were so excited that we were all together and dancing and there were no boys around. When I was in high school, I went to Girls State, and I remember there was this girl who got up on stage and she said this speech, and she was really well spoken, and I was terrified of talking to people. I talked to her afterwards, like, how come you're so good at this? And she told me she was on the debate team at her high school and ended up on my university's speech and debate team. It was a way to sort of teach myself how to find comfort in speaking in front of people, because I was literally terrified. I don't think nerves and anxiety are bad. I think the thing I had to learn, if you want to do something, start small and build yourself up. And the more comfortable you get feeling that way, the less scary it is. I was a general assignment reporter in Philadelphia, and it was the first big city that I had worked in. And I thought I was ready to work in a big city, but I was also really terrified. I'd worked in a lot of different places at that point. So I started off in South Carolina and Columbia. Then I went to West Virginia, Bluefield, West Virginia, Charlotte, North Carolina, Indianapolis, Indiana, and then Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm grateful for it because I got to move around and see a lot of the country. And America's a big place, and different parts of the country are very different from each other. And so seeing how people live, really live day to day, you can't do it any other way if you're then experiencing it with them and living in those communities. And that, I think, really helped prepare me for the job that I ended up in. That is my mom, and she's crazy. So in this picture, my mom and I were on this European trip together. Actually, what she told me was the best way to see Paris is on the back of a motorcycle. And I was like, Mom, how do you know this? I've gotten to know her in a way as an adult that's so different than the version of her that I knew as a kid. I mean, she really is much more of a free spirit than I could ever imagine being. She's adventurous. I think a lot of the adventurous side of me doing this job and traveling all over the place, I get from my mother. I would have never known that if we wouldn't have done these trips together. I'm not a risk taker by nature. I'm like a very I need to calculate how many different ways this could go wrong. And my mom is like, caution to the wind, let's just go for it. If it, follow your gut. I'm just not like that. And so she pushes me, out of my comfort zone on the regular. My mom's always been like, we'll figure it out. We'll do it together. And having that, I think, has been priceless. This was actually an appreciation photo because I remember that night we were covering a story in Paris. There had been a prison breakout south of Paris that these French gangsters had broken out of jail in a helicopter.
Tonight, about 3,000 French policemen are searching for Fayette.
I ended up standing in front of the Eiffel Tower for my live shot that night. And as I was standing there, I thought to myself, this little girl who grew up in South Carolina would never believe that she would be standing in front of the Eiffel Tower for work. All the things your parents tell you about working hard are true. I think if you work hard and you don't look at the noise going on around you, you can get there. You can reach the dream.